All right, first we're going to start with 2 cups of milk. We're going to put it over medium heat into a medium pot. And to that we're going to add 1.5 bananas cut into chunks or broken into chunks. So we're going to pop them right in the milk there. And what that's going to do is as the milk heats up, we're going to get all the flavor out of the bananas. So that's what we're looking for there. We're also going to add 2/3 of a cup of sugar and a pinch of salt. Salt helps balances out the sweetness that we're going to get in this recipe. So while that's heating up, we're going to watch that. We want to bring it to a bare simmer. So we're going to start to see it steam and start to see some bubbles around the edges. In the same bowl that we had the sugar in, we are going to take 3 tablespoons of cornstarch and we're going to make a slurry. So a slurry is used to keep lumps from forming when you're adding starches to liquid. This is a wet slurry. You can have a dry slurry. Like if I had mixed the cornstarch with the sugar, that would have been considered a dry slurry. But in this case, I'm going to take another half a cup of milk and I'm going to add that to my cornstarch. I'm going to whisk it together. You can use your finger or a spoon, whatever you have. You just want to make sure you get all the lumps off the bottom. What happens with this is as it sits, the cornstarch is going to settle at the bottom. So right before we use it to thicken our banana pudding, we want to make sure that we scrape up the bottom because it will settle. All right? All right, so I have it over medium heat, and I just want to give it a quick stir to make sure that the sugar isn't burning on the bottom and the milk is not scalding on the bottom. So just once in a while, come in here, give it a good stir, and then we'll come back to it when it's nice and warm.
On pause.
All right, so you can start to see it starting to foam up around the edges, and if you look really carefully, you might see a couple bubbles popping up, as well as they're sort of starting to like jiggle a little bit across the surface. That's how you can tell when it's at a simmer. We don't want to get it too much hotter than that, so I'm going to turn it off right now. Okay, we're going to use a hand blender to puree all of these bananas into the milk. If you don't have a hand blender and you have a regular blender at home, you can use that, but you have to be very careful when you're using hot liquids in a blender because they can explode. So when you put the lid on your blender, make sure you leave an air hole for the steam to escape. Otherwise, you'll have it all over your ceiling. So we're going to start on low. We're just going to mash up all those bananas. Alright, you're just going to let it do a little bit of a whirlpool here to get any last lumps out. If you want a really smooth pudding, you can certainly put this through a fine mesh sieve, but for today, we're just going to maybe we'll have some banana chunks in there. That's fine. All right, so we have our pureed banana milk, for lack of a better term, and we have our cornstarch slurry. And what we're going to do is add the cornstarch into this mixture, and we're going to keep it on medium heat. And what we're looking for is to bring it to a boil, because cornstarch needs to be brought to a boil to activate its thickening power. We don't want soupy pudding. We want pudding that is actually nice and thick. So we're going to keep stirring. Remember, milk is a very delicate protein, so we don't want to just leave it alone, leave it on the heat. It can burn really easily. So what we're going to do is stir pretty frequently, and you'll start to see the whole mixture start to thicken, and you'll maybe get some bubbles that look a little bit like lava, and then that's when you want to take it off the heat. All right, so you can start to see we're getting some bubbles around the edges. I know it's a little foamy from where we pureed it, but you're starting to see bubbles. That means the cornstarch is going to start to really thicken this pudding. What I like to do is keep it at a bare boil for about 5 minutes. So I'm going to keep stirring it to get it nice and thick. Once it's at the thickness you like, you're going to add 2 tablespoons of butter and 1 teaspoon of vanilla off the heat. And then you can pour it into cups if you want to eat them later as individual portions, or pour it back into a bowl. with plastic wrap directly on the surface. All right, so I've taken I turned the heat off on my banana pudding, and what I want to show you guys is how to tell if a starch thickened liquid is ready to use. So take a spoon, sort of wiggle it around in there in case there's bubbles, bring it up, and you want to put your finger right across. And this is called nappe. So if you see a line that holds its shape across the back of a spoon, that's when you know that your pudding is ready, or your pastry cream, or your vanilla anglaise. That's what you're looking for. So that is our nice thick pudding. It'll thicken more as it cools down. So now I'm going to add in my butter and my vanilla. And we're just going to let that cool down in the fridge in a bowl. All right, I'm going to take my banana pudding off the heat. It's already got the vanilla and the butter in there. We're going to pour it into a bowl. Smells like banana bread. And then I don't like to get a pudding skin on top of my pudding, so I take plastic wrap and I put it directly on top of the surface of the pudding. And that way you don't get that gross skin on top. Some people like the pudding skin, so it's really up to you. But this is how you should cool it in the fridge.